This is Duke University.
Global trade and environmental justice.
Human rights issues are still.
The term Ubuntu.
About the Alien and Sedition Acts.
Is making inferential discovery.
The importance of an archive.
The John Hope Franklin Center.
If you were to Google the name Jasiri-X, you would come up with a list of songs and videos that talk about hip-hop attempting to intervene in the crises that are going on in contemporary life. It's been a long time since we've thought about hip-hop in this way, and Jasiri-X is going to join us this afternoon to talk about what it means to be hip-hop in the age of social media. And then we'll also be joined by Professor Ebony Utley, who will talk about the impact of religion on hip-hop. Why is it that Jay-Z is subject of so many rumors of devil worship? Ebony Utley attempts to put some of that in context for us. I'm Anthony Neal, and this is Left of Black. Good afternoon and welcome to Left of Black. I'm Anthony Neal, and we're joined this afternoon by Professor Ebony Utley, Assistant Professor of Communication Studies at California State Long Beach. How are you doing today, Ebony?
I'm good, thank you.
Ebony is also the author of the forthcoming Gangster's God, The Quest for Respectability in Hip Hop, that'll be published by Prager Press next year. And she's also the co-editor of Hip Hop's Languages of Love. I wanted to have you on the show because you're doing some really interesting work today, I think, with hip-hop. I mean, so much of hip-hop scholarship over the last 20 years has been about defending what hip-hop is, explaining to the masses what folks are talking about in hip-hop. And here you've really taken the discussion in very different directions, talking about issues of love and relationships within hip-hop, but also talking about issues of religion in hip-hop. And one of the pieces that you did a few months ago, in fact, on religion dispatches that really caught my attention was trying to put into context all of this kind of chatter around Jay-Z and his legacy and all this talk of devil worship. And it was a really interesting piece because, you know, it's one of the things that's really struck me as kind of odd. As I've been telling folks, I don't have an expertise in devil worship, so I don't have a comment to make in terms of, you know, whether or not Jay-Z worships the devil or not. And I've often just kind of passed it aside as just being nonsense on some level. But you really took it to heart to talk about, you know, how a figure like Jay-Z and his success really impacts upon young people trying to figure out what's going on in the world, given the reality that, in fact, there is evil in the world. Could you talk a little bit about your process in terms of that particular piece?
Sure, absolutely. For most young people, well, for everyone, times are hard.
Yeah.
Economically, times are very hard. So when the social environment starts to change, people start to look for answers. So conspiracy theories are more likely to be found when people are not sure what's going on, and they're definitely not sure what's going to happen in the future. So I think the social conditions are right for conspiracy theories in general. Yeah. I think the reason why the most popular conspiracy theories have to do with hip-hop and the occult and the Illuminati is because now we have lots of black and brown men who are starting to make money, real money. They're starting to encounter wealth. And I think that makes lots of individuals uncomfortable. So when white folks could identify themselves based upon their racial status, class didn't matter as much. But now, because class is tenuous for everyone, whiteness isn't enough. So you have to be white and you have to have money. And when they're African or just as much money as whites, then we have to find new ways to explaining it. And the best way to take someone down a peg or two is to say, well, you only have your money because you worship the devil.
Yeah. Why Jay-Z, right? Why not 50 Cent? Why not Russell Simmons? Why not Diddy? You know, why do you think Jay-Z in particular has, you know, folks have latched onto him, and Beyonce to a certain extent as kind of the figures of the occult in this particular moment?
In a sentence, because Jay-Z was on Oprah. That's mainstream. That's as mainstream as it gets. 50 Cent is still sort of in his hip-hop world. He does business dealings that are not quite mainstream, but as soon as Jay-Z sat on that couch, things changed. And when Decoded came out and he walked all over the United States on tour, very mainstream, very NPR, very New York Public Library, he's entering a mainstream era that the other folks simply haven't done in the same way.
And that raises some interesting questions also, because on the one hand, you know, you're talking about a structure of white privilege that is trying to protect itself on the one hand, as folks like a Jay-Z, or even an Oprah in a different kind of context, are encroaching upon that space. But at the same time, you have young folks on the ground who are trying to figure out what this is about also. And, you know, if we go back 20 years or so, I mean, if we ever thought about in 1990 about hip hop, what hip hop would look like when it grew up, to some extent, that's exactly what Jay-Z represents at this moment, right? You know, hip hop, all grown, mainstream, you know, responsible, you know, literally taking care of business in the broadest sense of the term, but yet folks have now achieved this kind of mainstream success, and they still have to continue to explain why they need to be in the room or can be in the room.
Yes, absolutely. But think about it. Like if you're on your grind and you haven't blown up mainstream, it's like, well, that's because I didn't sell my soul to the devil. So it becomes a very convenient excuse. Well, I don't want to sell out. And this idea of selling out is still very permanent in hip hop. We don't say keeping it real as much as we did in the 90s, but lots of people are questioning Jay-Z's mainstream status. Is it a form of selling out? And did he sell out by selling his soul? So the selling language is very important to hip hop, not only from the monetary aspect, but also in terms of the keeping it real and originality and staying close to the streets sort of aspect as well.
You're watching Left of Black. I'm Mark Anthony Neal, and we're joined this afternoon by Professor Ebony Utley, who is an assistant professor of communication studies at Long Beach State. That would be the Cal system. She's the author of the forthcoming The Gangster's God, The Quest for Respectability in Hip Hop, and also the co-editor of Hip Hop's Languages of Love. Going back for a moment to think about, you know, this kind of mainstream moment with Jay-Z and Beyonce and all these kinds of figures, did you imagine that this is where hip hop would end up? You know, as you've been kind of following hip hop and writing about it, and of course being a fan of it over these last few years?
No, absolutely not. It wasn't until my students brought me the Illuminati theories that I started to seriously think about them. I mean, I had no idea. I mean, I consider myself a second-generation hip-hop scholar. A lot of the groundwork has already been laid for me, but the generation behind me was so invested in these conspiracy theories. I'd give talks around the country and have no idea what the students were talking about, so I thought it was time I delve into it and actually start to take it seriously.
You also recently did a second piece for Religion Dispatches talking about the religious discourse that in fact can be found in Jay-Z's music. And you know, most folks can pick up on it, and it's muted in some way, but you suggest it's actually much more pervasive than we've given Jay-Z credit for in the past. Talk a little bit about where contemporary hip hop artists are vis-a-vis religion, and particularly at a moment where it seems as though you know, the black church is much more visible in everyday black life than it may have been, you know, in almost 30 years. Mm-hmm.
Well, religion is people's ways of making sense of their environment, sort of making sense of their lives and making sense of the world. And hip-hop, when it deals with religion, is no exception. So God is still a very key figure in hip-hop music and has been for a pretty long time when we think about it. As people start to understand what their responsibilities are to themselves, to their families, to their communities, to God. When individuals are faced with death, trying to figure out what happens after death, is God going to be a forgiving God? Is God going to be an understanding God? And then with the advent of the bling era, which I argue that Jay-Z sort of helped to usher in the late 90s after Pac and Big died, God is linked to capitalism as well. Like, I make money because God wants me to. These God-given talents sort of...
Gospel prosperity, yeah.
Absolutely. I turn them into talents and I build more wealth for future generations. So God has always had a role in sort of understanding what's going on, in particular dealing with death, and also dealing with sort of justifying making money.
You're watching Left of Black, and we're here with Professor Ebony Utley of University of California State University at Long Beach, a professor of communication studies. Ebony, tell us about this new book, The Gangster's God, The Quest for Respectability in Hip Hop.
Yes, it actually has a new title.
Okay.
So the new title is Rap and Religion, Understanding the Gangster's God. Hopefully that will be a bit more accessible.
Yes, I get it.
And the book talks about rap and religion. Sort of, it talks about the history of the pairing between the two, and it also talks about God. It's a rhetorical analysis of how rappers talk about God and why rappers talk about God. So the book is not building a hip-hop theology. It's not as much about Christianity or Islam as it is about how people talk about God and what those conversations and discussions with God mean, not just for individual rappers, but for us as a society.
And how did you come to this work? you know, which is just something that was just of interest to you, and you, I mean, because in some ways, I mean, it really does kind of fill a vacuum. There is not a whole lot of scholarship at all about the way that hip hop artists really process, you know, religion in their everyday life. I mean, we always joke about the shout out to God at the Grammy Awards or the Source Awards. But what brought you to this particular subject matter?
Believe it or not, when I was a graduate student at Northwestern, I started out studying 19th century public address. So I was interested, it was Northwestern, very traditional. Yes. I was interested in abolitionist rhetoric, and then I did some work on Black Power, I did some work on King, and I was looking around, I was thinking, I love social movements, I love urban America, I love Black people. Where is the new movement? And that new movement was rap music for me. Right. And then thinking back too to all of those other social movements, God has always been a big push in the abolitionist rhetoric and the civil rights, also in Black Power in different ways. So I decided to bring God along with me. So the current book is actually sort of a revisioning of my dissertation, which was a case study of 3 death row artists and their talk about God. And
what are you going to be working on in the future?
In the future, I'm working on a pop culture anthology. I'm actually under contract to do that. I've got some more stuff in my head about hip hop and love that I really want to work through. So we'll be doing this hip hop relationship religion thing for a while.
Thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on Left of Black, Ebony. You've been watching Left of Black. I'm Anthony Neal. We're joined this afternoon by Professor Ebony Utley, who is Assistant Professor of Communication Studies at Cal State University, Long Beach, and the author of the forthcoming book on gangster rap and God and religion. Thanks again for joining us this afternoon, Ebony.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
The main principal political voice coming from the right now is the Tea Party. And even though you have a Tea Party that's very angry, a very racist message, they're armed, oftentimes they're portrayed as just being patriotic and just wanting to do what's best for their country and America. And I ask myself the question, what if the Tea Party was black? What if these are black people? How do you think they would be portrayed by the media?
What if the Tea Party was black, holding guns like the Black Panther Party was back? If Al was Rush Limbaugh and Jesse was Sean Hannity and Tavis was Glenn Beck, would you harm their families? If Sarah Palin was suddenly Sister Soldier, would you leave it to the voters and go and get the soldiers? Y'all know if the Tea Party was black, the government would have been had the army attack. What if Michael Baisden was on your FM dial for 3 hours every day calling the president foul? Would they say free speech or find evidence how to charge him with treason like he's un-American now? Would a minister Farrakhan pray for the death for the commander-in-chief that he be laid to rest? Would they treat it as the gravest threat or never make an arrest? Even today, still hated for less. What if President Obama would have lost the election, quit his job so he could go talk to the left and bash the government for being off of direction, fraught with deception, and told black people they want all of our weapons and we want our own country and call for secession? Would he be arrested and tossed in correction for trying to foster regression against the people's lawful selection? Question: what if the Tea Party was black, holding guns like the Black Panther Party was back? If Al was Rush Limbaugh and Jesse was Sean Hannity and Tavis was Glenn Beck, would you harm their families? If Sarah Palin was suddenly Sister Soldier, would you leave it to the voters and go and get the soldiers? Y'all know if the Tea Party was black, the government would have been had the army attack. What if black people went on Facebook and made a page that for the death of the president-elect we prayed? Would the creators be tased and thrown in the cage? We know the page wouldn't have been displayed all these days. What if Jeremiah Wright said that everybody white wasn't a real American? Would you feel scared of him if he had a militia with pictures that depict the president and said that they would kill and bury that? Wait, what if Cynthia McKinney lamented the winning of the new president and Hannity wasn't really a true resident with no proof or evidence? Would the media treat it like a huge precedent? They would have attacked whatever group she represents. They would have called her a coup-born precedent, and any network that gave a due preference would be the laughing stock of the news. So our question is, what if the Tea Party was black, holding guns like the Black Panther Party was back? If Al was Rush Limbaugh and Jesse was Sean Hannity and Tavis was Glenn Beck, would you harm their families? If Sarah Palin was suddenly Sister Soldier, would you leave it to the voters and go and get the soldiers? Y'all know if the Tea Party was black, the government would have been had the army attack.
Everything that is getting pushed through Congress, including this health care bill, are transforming America. And they are all driven by President Obama's thinking on one idea: reparations.
Good afternoon. You're back here on Left to Black. I'm Anthony Neal, and we're joined from the city of Pittsburgh. Yes. Jasiri-X, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good. You know, let me just start saying, man, I wish I had your energy. You know, you're doing it on so many levels, right? You know, repping hip hop at this point in time in ways that, you know, get us nostalgically thinking about the days of Public Enemy and KRS-One and Stetson Sonic and Brand Nubian and all those kinds of acts. You know, at the same time, you're also repping for the Nation of Islam. You know, as a minister within the Nation of Islam, and you know, most folks became aware of your work because of the internet, right? Because of the capacity for us to be able to use social media now and for stuff to go viral. And when folks first heard songs like Free the Agenda 6 and of course, What If the Tea Party Was Black, yeah. You know, you became an internet star. Talk about what it's like, you know, trying to balance the demands of being an on-the-ground activist, but also really being this kind of internet celebrity, you know, at the same time.
You know, it's interesting because, I mean, with the advent of the internet, you know, if it wasn't for the internet, I probably wouldn't be in hip hop right now, because I've pretty much given up. Yeah. Because, you know, the traditional routes say that you're a conscious artist and nobody wants to hear that type of music, and that doesn't sell. And so, you know, it was, you know, I made the song Free the Agenda 6 just kind of on a whim. Because I just wanted, I didn't have money to send, so I said, well, I'll make a song. I'll use my talent to try to add. And it was because of allhiphop.com putting it out, and then people feeding it to the Michael Bazin show, that it kind of began this journey for us. For me, it's an easier balance because it's my true love. You know, I love hip hop. I love, you know, using music and using this medium as a means of educating people. And I love, you know, my people. And really, when I see, you know, people oppressed or suffering, I want to do something to help. And here in Pittsburgh, we lead the nation among African Americans in poverty. We're number one out of all of the cities. And so when you have a situation like that and you see people suffering like that, I mean, to me, it's natural to want to do something to try and help. And so for us, really, it started with activism. It started with us here in Pittsburgh, myself and a group of other, you know, Christians, politicians, nationalists, creating a group called One Hood to help stop the violence in Pittsburgh. And out of that came, you know, all of this music. And a lot of times it's the online, or I'm sorry, the offline, on the ground activism that inspire the songs that we write.
It was great seeing one of your most recent songs, American Workers versus Multi-Billionaires, right? And your real serious critique of the Koch brothers and, of course, everything that's been going down in places like Ohio and Jersey and, of course, Wisconsin. And you know, I think there are a lot of folks that when they think hip-hop, the last thing they think about is the American labor movement, right? They would think that hip-hop, of course, wouldn't have anything to comment on. You know, of course, if we were to go by looking at folks like Jay-Z and 50 Cent, you know, what does hip hop have to do with American workers? But, you know, you bring that together in a way that is absolutely brilliant. What I liked about that particular video is that it also captured the energy that the protesters in Wisconsin clearly have been taken from what's happening in North Africa in the Middle East. And it seems to me that this is something that would only have been possible in the era with the kind of digital media and social media that we have access to now.
True. I mean, and it's so, I mean, how that song came about was really a conversation that I was having with some, you know, progressive political people. And I often solicit ideas. And, you know, one of them said, hey, the next big topic is going to be the budget cut. And it caused me to think about how oftentimes those that make decisions about the budgets are these multimillionaires and you know, at the behest of billionaires trying to, you know, instead of make $5 billion, they want to make $10 billion.
Right.
And so I kind of wrote this song because I saw, you know, I'm a very politically minded person, and I saw how the unions and the average worker began to be demonized, especially by Fox News. And I just wondered about that because I'm thinking, isn't this what makes up these, you know, tea parties? Is, you know, just average regular workers? And if any group of people need a union, it's hip hop artists. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Used and abused by the industry, and so we wrote the song, and then just ended up by, you know, doing a you know, I was asked to do the keynote at a school in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin Platteville. And instead of going there, we drove into Madison, and I was blown away at the energy. It was really, the energy wasn't an energy of hate or negativity towards Governor Walker. It was really a love for this movement, a love for wanting, you know, people coming together. We're really happy. There was a lot of children there, and it was really, it was this free speech in action. And you know, I know they were upset that some of the schools were closed, but I thought, what a better demonstration.
It's a teaching, yeah.
Right, that a child could see was that it was really their free speech, you know, this politics in action. And I was just glad that I could be there. But you're right. I mean, we have a digital camera, and we just went to work and captured all of the stuff that we could capture, and then, you know, 2 days later, put it online.
You're watching Left the Black. I'm Mark Anthony Neal. We're here with Jasiri-X from his home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You should know him well for his work as an you know, an internet MC, if you will, but also for his work on the ground as an activist. You know, I mentioned a little earlier about, you know, when I hear your music, immediately I'm thinking about what we think of the classic era of hip-hop conscious music. And, you know, for far too many young folks, when you say a classic era, they're thinking about Mos Def and Talib Kweli in the late 1990s. Right. But, you know, I've been listening to this for a little longer, and one of the people that you've been able to collaborate on, who's directed a few of your videos, is Paradise Gray. Who, of course, his own legacy going back to a group like X-Clan. How did those collaborations come about?
Well, he's directed all of my videos. That's my, you know, best friend and mentor and, you know, everything else. And it really came about because I found out that he was living in Pittsburgh, and I was, of course, shocked that, you know, Paradise, the architect of X-Clan, was in Pittsburgh. And when we got together, it wasn't on the basis of music. You know, he's actually also one of the founding members of One Hood. And he would call me every day when a young person in the community was killed and ask, you know, well, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do? And he would really, you know, I see him as the engine of a lot of the work that we do on the ground of One Hood, because he has such a love and care for our people. And it wasn't until kind of the Gina 6 thing kind of blew up that we said, you know, he said, well, hey, you know, I could help you with this music stuff. You know, being that he has this long track record, and you know, and he's, the thing about who people don't know about it, he's also a photographer, and he has a photography collection of hip hop memorabilia that goes all the way back. He ran the Latin Quarter, which is one of the most famous clubs in hip hop history, and he has pictures from there. And, I mean, he has such a diverse collection, but his photography skills allowed him, and he's this technological. He's very much into current technology, and so he was the one that said you should go online and put your music online. You should have, you know, MySpace and Twitter and all of that. And but his photography eye allowed him to just get behind a video camera and really channel that into some to me brilliant direction. Especially if you saw the kind of guerrilla stuff that we do. We usually just go and just shoot, you know, and no permits or nothing. And so that's his spirit. Some of those New Yorkers, you know, that's Bronx and Brooklyn, New York, to do that. But it's been, I couldn't have done anything, have any type of success if it wasn't for him. And of course, Paradise was the one that told me I should write the song, What If the Tea Party Was Black? So.
Right. Right, and timely. I mean, that's the thing that also strikes me about the work that you've been doing, Jasiri, is that all of it is so timely. I mean, folks were just really getting the chance to wrap their heads around, you know, Peter King's hearings, you know, last week, you know, in the House. And then your video was already there with a ready-made response, right? You know, who exactly are the terrorists? And so, you know, on the one hand, it's about, you know, how do you make quality music? how do you keep the integrity of the lyrics, but also having a sense of the social flow of where media is, and knowing when to be able to drop things so they can have, you know, the most important, you know, the biggest amount of impact in terms of changing the discussion. And I think the thing, I've been hard pressed to think about hip hop songs at all during the last, you know, 10 years, except maybe the example of Why Is That? Or Jadakiss's Why, that, you know, have changed the discourse, right? Songs that come out and really intervene in the political discourse at the particular moment. Hip hop used to do that all the time. You know, it doesn't do that as much anymore.
Well, I mean, I think what happened is it's been corporatized, and so the you know, the idea of hip hop right now is to try to make as much money as you can, and try to get ads, to maybe get a role in a movie, and not really address, you know, to me, some of the worst conditions, especially in the Black community, that we've ever seen. And it's shocking to me that, you know, artists are still talking about making it rain where we're in a recession.
Right.
We have such massive unemployment in our community, especially among African American men. And so I hope that, one, you know, more people or more artists and maybe more influential artists like myself begin to address the current climate and current issues of what's going on. And but for us, it was a process of, you know, we started to do songs once a week, and you know, I got used to writing very quickly, and then editing. I edit the videos and editing very quickly, but, you know, it got to the point where the pace was so great that I had to leave my job, thankfully. So now
it was a blessing.
and so we have the ability now, and just like you said with technology, we have the ability to shoot it, dump it to the computer, and begin editing and taking some of the clips so we can be timely. We really try to make music. We've also tried to do some, I guess, preemptive music making. So the song Wandering Stranger was written, and we were able to kind of see that that was going to come down the line.
Right.
So we also have some songs in the chamber for some of these other topics that we believe are coming down the line, and we hope to release very soon.
Let me ask you before I let you go, if you had your choice, you're going to be stuck on a desert island, and you got to bring 3 hip-hop recordings with you.
Wow.
What 3 are you spending the eternity of your life on an island listening to?
Well, interesting. I know the first. Wow. The first one would be Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, classic.
That's probably my history as a hip hop listener. The album that I played the most. Secondly, the second album I played the most might be a little bit surprising, but it's the infamous Mobb Deep. Just beginning to end, you know, production, the lyricism, and definitely kind of a darker slice of our culture. And then I would say thirdly, man, it would have to be either My Philosophy or should I say By Any Means Necessary, or By All Means Necessary, or It Takes a Nation of Millions. I got to say It Takes a Nation of Millions because, in my opinion, the hardest song ever made was Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos. And I doubt that any artist will ever make a harder song than that. And Chuck D, you know, his voice and his maturity, even now, you know, his influence. So even though I love KRS-One, he probably is obviously the best of all time. I got to go with It Takes a Nation of Millions.
You've been watching Left to Black. I'm Mark Anthony Neal, and we're joined by Jasiri-X, activist and MC from his home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Jasiri, thanks for joining us this afternoon. It's been a great conversation, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, and it was an honor and privilege. And we're going to drop a few more videos, so maybe I'll be back soon.
That'll be cool. That'll be cool. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Trying
produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.